Hey everyone, it's Adrianna Cuevas. Today we are going to be making quesitos because that is the favorite snack of Rafa in my new book, The Ghosts of Rancho Espanto. Now, quesitos are pretty similar to pastelitos de guayaba because you are basically just taking out the guava, adding some cream cheese, and you're rolling it up a little bit differently. But I'm going to show you how to make quesitos, and while I'm working, I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the Ghosts of Rancho Espanto. So let's go ahead and get started, but you can find the full recipe in the video description below. So the first thing you want to do when you're making quesitos is take one sheet of puff pastry and you need to cut it into 6 pieces. Now, the easiest way to do that is with a pizza cutter. So for the Ghost of Rancho Espanto, I think this book has my favorite first chapter I have ever written in a book. And the reason for that is that in the first chapter of the Ghost of Rancho Espanto, Rafa and his 2 friends, Beto and Yessi, steal the slushy machine from the school cafeteria. And there's a special reason that they do that, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. But for our next step of our recipe, we have our puff pastry now in 6 pieces. You're going to take some cream cheese, a block of cream cheese that's kind of been cut into slices, and you'll take one slice and put it in each section of your puff pastry. Now, the reason that I decided to start the Ghost of Rancho Espanto with Rafa stealing the slushy machine was something that was inspired from my own life. One day when my son was in middle school, he came home from school and he said, "Mom, I'm going to steal a slushy machine from the school cafeteria." And at first I was bad mom and I thought, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I would love to see that. And then I realized, oh no, I need to be good mom. And so I told him, hey, maybe let's not do that. But I am totally going to put that in a story because a lot of times authors will take, the experiences that we've had, the people around us, and we put them in our stories. And so that was where I got the idea for Rafa and his 2 friends to steal the slushy machine from the school cafeteria. All right, so next step, we have our sections of puff pastry. I've put a slice of cream cheese in each section. Now you're going to take some sugar and you're just going to put some sugar right next to that slice of cream cheese that you have. Now, the other thing from my own life that is in the Ghost of Rancho Espanto is why Rafa gets sent to a horse ranch in New Mexico. Now, his dad's not too happy with him when he steals the slushy machine. And so that's the punishment that his dad comes up with. Rafa has to spend the summer working at a ranch all the way in New Mexico, far away from his home in Miami. Now, that is also something from my own life. In 2019, my sister was working as a emergency wilderness medic in Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. And she said to me, this ranch has a library. Why don't you come out to the ranch with me? You can volunteer in the library while I'm working. And I thought, you know what? Let's go. Why not? And so I went out to Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. I volunteered in the library where I got to sort through boxes of books that all had cockroaches in the bottom. I lived in a trailer that had this really bright orange carpet. But as I was volunteering there, I started to learn about the history of the ranch and some of the mythology and lore that surrounded it. And it was really fascinating. But I'll tell you about that in a second, because the next step of our recipe, we have our cream cheese and our sugar in our puff pastry. So now we need to roll up the puff pastry so that the cream cheese and the sugar are sealed inside. Now, just take your puff pastry and kind of like you're making a cinnamon roll or something, roll it up, and then you're going to want to pinch the ends closed. And then you will take a sprayed baking sheet and you'll place your quesito on the baking sheet. Now, as I learned about the history of Ghost Ranch, I learned that in the 1800s, there were 2 brothers and they were stealing cattle and they were hiding these cows in the canyons around the ranch. And to make sure that nobody wandered onto the ranch and found all the things that these brothers had been stealing, they started to spread rumors that the area was haunted. And so they would hang wind chimes from trees that would make a spooky sound at night. And they spread all these stories about all these monsters that lived on the land, like this huge snake called a vivaron, which would devour you if you wandered onto the ranch, or these creatures called earth babies that were made of the clay play around the ranch that would also attack you if you wandered on. So basically, they were doing anything they could to convince people that this whole place was haunted and you didn't want to go there. But their real reason was just so that no one would figure out they had been stealing all these things. And so the more I learned about that, I love ghost stories and things like that. And so I thought, well, how much fun would it be to take a character from Miami, drop him down on this ranch, and he's got to figure out if all these ghost stories are true or not. And so that's what I did to poor Rafa. All right, we have our quesitos all rolled up and on our baking sheet. And so now what we need to do is take some egg that's been mixed up with a little bit of water, and then you're going to take a pastry brush and you're going to brush the top of each quesito. Now, this story I love because it's not just a spooky story. It's not just an adventure or a mystery. It combines a lot of different genres. So when people ask me, well, what kind of story is this? Sometimes I have a hard time explaining because yes, there is mystery. There are some spooky moments. There's a lot of funny moments. And so I love that it kind of combines all the different kinds of books that I love to read. And one of the things that I like to challenge readers now, since it is a bit of a mystery, is that as you're reading The Ghosts of Rancho Espanto, you are going to learn about a character who is the man in the green sweater. And I want to challenge you to see if you can figure out as you're reading who the man in the green sweater is before Rafa does, because that's a pretty important part to the story. All right, so we have our quesitos all on our tray, brushed them with some egg wash. The last thing we need to do before we put them in the oven is sprinkle some sugar on top. Now, the reason that I decided to make quesitos is that when Rafa is on the ranch at Rancho Espanto, he meets Jenny, who is the daughter of the librarian who works on the ranch. And they bond over having rather enthusiastic debates about who has the better snacks, because Jenny is Korean American. She's trying to convince Rafa that Korean snacks are the best. Well, Rafa is Cuban American, so he's trying to convince Jenny that Cuban snacks are the best. And so they go back and forth, sharing snacks with each other. And one of the things that they do is that they hide snacks in the library. So there might be, plantain chips behind the books in the poetry section. There might be honey twists or shrimp chips behind the books that are, in the nonfiction section, things like that. So apologies to librarians out there if I inspire any kind of snack hiding. So we have our quesitos ready to go. You're going to put them in an oven that's been heated to 400 degrees, and you are going to bake them for about 17 minutes. All right, so we have taken our quesitos out of the oven. Let them cool. That cream cheese filling is going to be really, really hot. But once they've cooled a bit on the baking pan, you can put them on a plate. So we have made quesitos. I have told you a little bit about the Ghosts of Rancho Espanto. So I hope you enjoy this adventure. I hope you enjoy seeing Rafa get used to taking care of horses, something pretty new for a kid from Miami. And I hope that maybe you help him solve the mystery that he's dealing with while on the ranch. But most of all, I hope that you enjoy trying quesitos. I really recommend it. You also can try in some of my previous videos pastelitos de guayaba from the Total Eclipse of Nestor Lopez. Those would go really well with these. So happy reading, happy story creating, and happy baking and eating. Thank you.